Hello, everybody. This week I want to share with you the communion antiphon for this Sunday. And you know the drill by now, so I'll go ahead and sing through it first, and then we'll unpack it together a little bit. I am the true vine, and you are the branches. Whoever remains in me and I in him bears fruit in plenty. Alleluia. All right, so we know first of all that these are the words of Jesus to his disciples. And what really struck me was just how fitting of a reminder these words are for us during this time when we are still waiting to be able to receive Jesus in the Eucharist, and we're still waiting to be able to go to Mass. Because even though we can't receive him in Holy Communion at this time or go to Mass, we are still called to remain in him, to stay rooted in Jesus and in his Eucharistic presence all throughout our day. He calls us to this, and he also gives us the graces to be able to do this. And one really powerful way that we can remain in him throughout our day and remain united to his Eucharistic presence is through our spiritual communions. Now, Father leads us in the prayer of spiritual communion during his YouTube masses, but we can also pray this prayer throughout our day, just continuing to ask the Lord to dwell with us and turn our hearts toward him. I don't know about you, but sometimes I will do my prayers in the morning or watch Father's YouTube Mass, and at that point be just very united, feel very united to the Lord, very mindful of his presence, right, during my prayer time. But then as I go throughout my day, as I go throughout my work, I so easily get distracted from the fact that the Lord is with me, or get distracted from his love for me or my love for him. It's so easy, right, to forget because there's so much, often when there's just so much going on throughout our day. So a spiritual communion is just a way that we can sort of just recenter ourselves on the fact that Jesus is with us. He's with us in the Eucharist, in the tabernacles throughout the world. So even though we're not in the presence of Jesus in the tabernacle, he's still here on earth with us in the tabernacle. So we can unite ourselves to his Eucharistic presence through our spiritual communions. And now the saints were huge, huge fans of spiritual communions. And so by now that I love sharing with you the wisdom of the saints that have the wisdom of the saints that has helped me throughout the years, or that I've found particularly beautiful or insightful. So I'm going to share some of that with you now. St. John Vianney said about spiritual communions that when we feel the love of God growing cold, let us instantly make a spiritual communion. When we cannot go to the church, let us turn toward the tabernacle. No wall can shut us out from the good God. So he says when we feel the love of God growing cold, meaning that when we feel our love for God in our hearts growing cold, we should instantly make a spiritual communion. So when we're throughout our day, we realize, we're forgetting about the presence of God, or we just really are in need of uniting ourselves with him, then we should just instantly make a spiritual communion and reunite ourselves, just join our hearts to his Eucharistic presence. I also read recently that St. Francis de Sales and St. Maximilian Kolbe resolved to make a spiritual communion at least every quarter of an hour. So every 15 minutes to make a spiritual communion. And you might be like, why? That's crazy. But because that was a way of constantly uniting themselves and their hearts to Jesus in the Eucharist. They didn't want to leave him, even if they had to leave his Eucharistic presence physically, right? They couldn't be in front of the tabernacle all day, right? Because God was calling them to other duties, and to their ministry. But they didn't want to, if they had to leave Jesus in the Eucharist physically, they wanted to remain with him spiritually. And so constantly uniting their hearts to Jesus in the Blessed Sacrament. And finally, St. Leonard said, if you practice the holy exercise of spiritual communion several times each day, within a month, you will see your heart completely changed. And those are bold, very bold words. That's a bold claim, right? And I know we don't, hopefully, if we are able to go back to Mass on Pentecost Sunday, we have less than a month until we'd be able to be united with Jesus in the Eucharist again. But we still have several weeks. So let's just try to use this time, at least I'm saying this to myself as well. We could just use this time to try to just stay, to remain in Jesus, to remain in his Eucharistic presence in our hearts as much as we can, so that we can just continue to bear fruit for his kingdom in our families, in our work, in our hearts. All right, so to conclude, I'll sing it for you one more time. I am the true vine, and you are the branches. Whoever remains in me, and I in him, bears fruit in plenty. Alleluia.